So this is so weird. There's an interview online of Henry Winkler. And do you know which one I'm going to talk about?
No, I don't.
So Henry Winkler gave an interview shortly after Heather died and said that, it's bizarre. Obviously, she died of a medical condition. He goes that she committed suicide. She was abused by her dad. She plucked out her eyebrows. So sad.
Henry Winkler said that?
Yes, and I've got the clip.
Heather O'Rourke, who played her daughter, committed suicide, or was killed by some strange thing happened there. They said that she died from, bad flu. But I think she was tortured by her father. I think. She pulled her eyelashes out, I think. Really unhappy little girl. It's terrible.
Now, when I went to look for it today, because I was going to play it for you on this computer that I record on, this is from 30 years ago. I can't find that. I have the clip on my computer that it's not hooked up to this podcast because I downloaded it like 2 weeks ago. But now I can't even find it online. It's so weird.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to talk about something. And one of the main reasons why I do this interview was, of course, I'd like to talk to you too because you seem genuinely nice and everything. But with all the allegations coming out recently about all the abuse and all the movie stars, sexually abusing each other and everything else, there's way too much talk about Heather and Steven Spielberg and her being abused by him and all that kind of stuff. And that really was bothering me. My mom doesn't know about it. I haven't even had to read it because it was just too much. And I've been posting to some people. The people who don't live in our house, don't know who we are jumping the guns and assuming that, we just let her be abused by Steven Spielberg and did nothing about it. And it's really, I don't know why people think they could say things like that, and I understand. And Henry Winkler's one is just amazing to think that she was abused by her father and did this. But for people who just don't even know Heather at all or know us at all, 30 years later are jumping on the bandwagon of the sexual abuse being out there in the public and saying, she was abused by Steven Spielberg and da-da-da, and therefore that's what happened. She died from that. No, she didn't. And if she was abused, we wouldn't wait 15 years to say it. We'd say something then and there. We're not those kind of people. So I really wish that the people out there who do listen can tell a friend of theirs to stop posting stuff like that because they don't know what they're talking about. And that's what really, really bothers me about the internet and people, making up stories about people they don't know anything about.
Tammy, I'm so glad, and I didn't mean for you to go there, but I'm so glad you did.
No, you're fine. I was going to go there eventually anyways with you, but I'm glad we tied it in with the Henry Winkler thing.
I'm so glad you cleared that up. It's definitely out there. And it's way too easy to read things like that. And it's sad. It really is just sad.
Mm-hmm. It is. And if I don't know you, so I wouldn't put anything about you on the internet that I didn't know was truth. And
Absolutely.
Even then I wouldn't put anything out there to slander anybody anyway. So to sit there to take a young girl who's 12 years old who passed away from a congenital disease and make up stories about how she lived her life, I don't even know who you people are. My family's very close-knit. I know everybody in my family who would know anything about us, and there's no reason to put that kind of stuff out there. And the internet is forever. And you know how it is, too. Your podcasts are out there forever, and everything's out there forever. So why would you want to put that out there about somebody you don't even know anything about?
Right.
And to define a clip from 30 years ago, Henry Winkler, that is just amazing. That shows how much you can find things from 30 years ago. And in 30 years from now, you're going to find things about Heather or anybody, that's a movie star or might have had a glimpse of some sort of stardom, then talk about him as well. So
yeah,
I didn't mean to take off on your interview. I'm sorry, but that was one of the main things I want to talk about. So I apologize.
I think it's really well needed. And
okay,
thanks. I don't know how to recover from that.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, let's just start again.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
I could speak more about Heather, what she, how she was. And, we grew up in a trailer park for about 2 or 3 years when I was doing Tim Conway's show. And we lived in a little Ford Ranger with a camper shell. And her and my mom slept in a sleeping bag and I slept in a hammock strung across them. And we spent years like that living, in a trailer park. And that was probably the closest time we were ever together. And she had no problem with it. I was a fortune and poltergeist. So she grew up, very, humble and very, everything. She lived in an apartment in Lakeside when she died. So she wasn't a highfalutin, fancy movie star or anything. She spent many of her time living in trailers and campers and apartments, and never really had anything that she was never materialistic about anything.
And she always went to school, right? Public school?
Yep, she sure did. We went to a private school for a year only because when I was working, it was easier to be in L.A. than to go back and forth. But after that, it was I was in 6th grade and she must have been in 2nd grade, I think. But after that, though, she went to public school, and she loved to go to public school, and her friends loved her, and she had sleepovers, and she went trick or treating, and she did all the stuff she could do. Unfortunately, though, she passed away at 12, and she couldn't do anything else after that. High school dances and that kind of thing. And,
right.
But she had a lot of friends, and she was just a regular kid who just she had a job, and her job was doing movies, and then she'd come on when it was done, and she would continue on doing everything else. And when she passed away, we had 2 services because all the kids in school, they shut the school down for the day, and they had for her funeral. And everybody came to the funeral. So, and then we had the one in LA. So she was a regular kid who she was just a girl. Yeah. And that's all she was. She just happened to do movies on the side. So that's how she was.
And she had a very large Cabbage Patch doll collection, right?
Yes, she did. My mom has given some to my kids, given some to brothers and who've had children and stuff, and kind of given them off to a little bit, and stuff. But for the most part, my mom's got them. I mean, and she loved Cabbage Patch dolls. And back then that craze was amazing. I mean, I had them too, but of course I didn't care as much about them as she does. But she had a large Cabbage Patch collection. She loved the Cabbage Patch dolls.
And did she play sports in addition to acting?
No, she did not play any sports.
Okay.
No, she was never really into the sports. Yeah.
What about other hobbies like cooking, or what else did she like to do when she wasn't on set?
She liked to bake, and she did like to do regular things like she rode a bike. When the computers finally came out, I believe it was, I want to say about 87, maybe, I'm thinking. The old screen, with the green screen and everything, She did play, Carmen Sandiego, that kind of thing. So she did like to write and be on the computer quite a bit. So she was always, she liked to do that quite a bit, to write stories and that kind of stuff.
And she did mention directing, that she wanted to direct at some point. Was she creating stories that maybe she thought would be good movies or shows?
She'd get involved in one thing and then she'd forget about the story and go on another story. So she had like a lot of stories that were half written. But she really wanted to continue on in school, and Jodie Foster was one of her idols. She wanted to be a lot like Jodie Foster.
Aww.
And, she wanted to continue on and do a lot of stuff. And I think to this day, a lot of child stars grow up and they end up, hurting themselves, or they have issues with themselves. And I believe that she would have gone on to be like Jodie Foster and made herself, done something very well with herself. Fred Savage has gone on to be very well. A lot of those kid stars have made a really good name for themselves and gone behind the scenes, and I think she would have been just as well as that.
I think you're right. I really do. And that says a lot about who your family is and your sister and even you. I mean, you went into the entertainment industry, you came out, went to school, and now you're a nurse, and it's a very remarkable, fun story to tell. And I'm glad that you came on here to tell it. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fan Encounters. Is there anything else before we go that you wanted to either talk about, or anything that you can think of that would be super interesting for the listeners who are still thinking about Heather?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know if I have much more to share, because to me she was just Heather. So
right.
I don't see it as anything. I don't see it as anything exciting for you guys to know about. But like I said, she was just a regular person, and I think a lot of movie stars out there are just regular people. And but she was just a young girl who just happened to fall into this type of job, and she loved it. But she also loved being at home, collecting flamingos and Cabbage Patch dolls and everything. And she loved Dumbo and just going to Disneyland. She was just a regular kid. Who knows what she would have done as she got older? But that's what she was, and that's who she is. And I'm glad that people are still thinking about her in a good way. And I just appreciate people like you who, keep her memory alive and keep, fighting for her name to be, kept alive. I appreciate that.
As it should be. So thank you so much again. I do appreciate, Tammy, you coming on and taking time to talk to me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you too. Thank you very much.
My thanks to Tammy Walker for being on the program this week. You know what, guys? Like all of our guests, she did not have to come on, but she felt that keeping Heather's memory alive was important, as we do, and we are glad that she did come on. She also talked about some very hard topics. One of them is about internet rumors. Of course, you cannot believe everything you read online, and that is the case when people are talking about theories on the way that Heather died. They're cyberbullying this family. You can tell in Tammy's voice that it's painful to have these rumors be spread about because they're untrue and they're not nice, and it needs to stop. So hopefully you'll help spread the word and shut down these conversations as soon as they begin.